Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we are taking a look at the Tier 6 British battleship, the Queen Elizabeth. And if you own a Warspite, you will be very familiar with this battleship, because essentially, in a lot of ways, Warspite and the Queen Elizabeth are sister ships. Actually, they are sister ships, but should be very familiar if you do own the Warspite. And she is a good ship, even though this is actually a stock version, definitely not upgraded. And this was, in fact, my very first battle with her. And oh boy, this is going to be a very interesting battle. So, Queen Elizabeth, as far as I can tell, is fairly decent ship. Her AP seems definitely a little bit better than the Iron Duke. Obviously, her explosive is pretty nice. Her speed is not too bad, and her armor is pretty decent. As far as I can also tell, the accuracy on the guns are pretty good. You still will have those random dispersions where the shells just go every which way. But that's usual. If you're a battleship captain, you should fully be well aware of this. Let's actually take a look at the teams. Playing on shards, playing domination, we have a Bismarck, Gneisenau, Warspite, Queen Elizabeth, Bayern, New Orleans, Otago, Chapayev, Nuremberg, Grospe, Z-23, and a Sims. On the enemy team, there is a Alabama, Gneisenau, Warspite, Queen Elizabeth, Bayern, New Orleans, Charles Martel, Mogami, Pensacola, Molotov, Ognovoy, and Bliskovica. So as you can tell, the battle has already commenced, and I do have high explosive loaded. You can see the dispersion's not too bad, and we do actually land the very first hit on that Bliskovica. Do get a defense ribbon for it, so overall not too bad. So the enemy team is starting to push into B. They have pushed into A. Our team has decided to not go towards C because, well, it's a death trap sometimes. So obviously the entire friendly team taking their sweet time. I know I'm probably just talking out of my, well, talking out of my butt, but anyways, we are starting to push in, but obviously the enemy team is doing actually a better job as far as actually currently capping. We do see a Pensacola, Mogami, and Molotov. Keep an eye on these players. They are going to be my pain in the butt. They are going to be my nightmare for the majority of this battle. So I do slow up. Obviously, I do have AP loaded. Like I said, the armor piercing rounds are pretty decent, very similar to the Warspite, and they actually seem to be capable of actually penetrating into the armor and not having as bad of a chance. Now, against other battleships, it doesn't feel like they hit quite as hard as, say, a Bayern or Fuso would against a broadside target. Not saying that's impossible, but that's kind of the way it feels. And our poor destroyer here is currently pushing in against a Mogami, and well, you can probably guess what's going to happen. He's not going to be around for very much longer. So went ahead, fired a shot off at the Mogami. Not too bad. Almost 7k damage there with only 1 penetration and 3 overpins, so not too bad. But this is probably the one downside, is the fact that we are going to be spotted for a while, and there once again is a Mogami, and Mogami is a good Japanese cruiser, has a really good high fire chance on it, so yeah, we're going to be burning quite a bit. And I guess this is probably a good demonstration of how the Queen Elizabeth deals with fire, because we'll be lit up quite a bit. So I went ahead and moved forward just to get that solid cover between myself and that Mogami. So, and that Molotov. I believe the Molotov's also shooting at us. And you can see at that counter on the top right how many ships were aiming at us. At least 2 were. And there's actually a good reason to that, due to the fact that we are the only ones over at the C area. Our entire enemy or friendly force is currently pushing kind of south into A. This friendly team just was very nonchalant on trying to push into the objectives. We do have a Z-23. He is currently capping. I believe he's actually currently dealing with a enemy destroyer. I believe. Oh, no. Oh, nope. He's actually currently capping. So, C-23 does take out the enemy Baron, does flood him to death, which is actually really super good, because we're going to need all the help we can. We can see that we have a Nuremberg and a Graspe way on the western side, hiding behind islands that they're not going to be overly helpful. They're kind of hiding. They are low tier, just like I am, but I am going to try to move away from this island as quickly as possible. There's a Charles Martel, and it does have torpedoes, and I really do not want to give him the opportunity to use those torpedoes. So with armor piercing loaded, let's see if we can actually get a hit on this Charles Martel. I'm trying to get behind this island, but I think this captain on this Charles Martel is probably going to be a little bit smarter than that, so he's actually going to keep this island between himself and and I'm not going to be able to get that shot. But there was a enemy Hakaym starting to push in. And let's see, out there he is. Oh, that's actually the Pensacola. Looks like he finally turned around and popped up. Waiting for him to show me broadside. And let's see if we can get a Citadel on a Pepsi can. There we go. Very, very nice. 22k damage. Very, very nice, but it's definitely time to move away very, very quickly because that Hakaym is going to just melt us away. You can see he's actually running the 155 millimeter guns. As you can see, 15 shells just coming our way constantly. I really do want to get the Hakaym again sometime. Let's see. Can we get another hit on this Pensacola? Our shells just fell a little bit short, which is unfortunate, but the Charles Martel has in fact come around the corner, and no Citadel on that Pensacola, which is unfortunate. But we have taken a lot of fire damage, and the only downside of this is that we don't have that exceptionally amazing British battleship heal. So we only have, we only will be able to get about maybe 15,000 points health back. Something like that. Now the Charles Martel is being hyper aggressive right now. He does have a enemy friendly guys now to deal with. And yes, we probably should actually be turning the other way and giving us much space between ourselves and that Hakaym and that Molotov as well. Look at this, look at this. Pick on the low tier battleship, why don't you? Alright, so fortunately, our team does come to the rescue and does take out the enemy Charles Martel. The Graspe actually comes around and does take him out, so very good job there. Now, the Queen Elizabeth is a Dreadnought class battleship. She's the last one of the British battleship line. And overall, her armor, like I said, is pretty decent. Her torpedo protection is pretty terrible. In fact, probably one of the worst. Her range isn't the greatest either. I believe with the upgrade you can get around 17.2, I think something like that. Definitely not the greatest. That Hakaym is currently hiding. Really would like to get some payback after the fact that we have been set ablaze quite a few times and have lost the majority of our health to these cruisers over here. So just hoping those pop around the corner. Let's see if we can actually get this Pensacola. Let's see. Looks like he's actually turning away. And this is one thing you definitely need to learn when you're a battleship captain is wait for the proper opportunity, especially when a cruiser decides to turn away, and just aim to where he's going to be. Now the enemy Warspite has come out around the corner, and there goes the enemy Pensacola. Finally earned our revenge, and of course I have two ships aiming at me, so we're going to be set ablaze for a little while. Hopefully we can take out this enemy Warspite. Right now that Molotov is going to be a big issue. Do go ahead and pop my damage control as well as my heal, and trying to angle away from this enemy Warspite. It does have a enemy Gneiss now almost directly off his starboard bow. Now shots off at the Molotov. Let's see if we can get a little payback. 3 ships. What the? It's just like pick on the Queen Elizabeth time. Look at that AP. Look at that damage from that AP from that Molotov. Pretty good damage there. But I'm thinking I'm going to try to angle away and maneuver, get some distance, because we have definitely taken quite a beating from all these ships. But I think, let's see, shots out on the enemy Molotov. Can we get another kill and get some more revenge? I think so. There we go. Second kill of this game. And as you can see, we have not really left our spawn. I really did not mean to do this, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, our team kind of has stayed around spawned as well. And it has actually kind of worked out for our benefit, because our team has taken out the majority of the enemy team. All that's left is that Hakaym and that, not North Carolina, Alabama, actually. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to pull away, try to stay out of sight. The detection on the Queen Elizabeth's not bad, around 12-kilometer detection, so you can definitely use that for your advantage whenever possible. Now the Hakaym has finally been spotted, but this Hakaym captain is actually a really good player, and he has just dropped torpedoes against the enemy Gneisenau, and we have lost the Gneisenau to this Hakaym. So I salute you, Hakaym captain. Really good job. Like, he actually did a really fantastic job in this battle. He's done probably a substantial amount of damage, especially coming from me. Most of that damage came from me. Now, one nice little thing I've just now noticed is that the ash that was on our ship has actually disappeared, which is actually a really nice little feature. You see, we lost quite a few secondaries gun. Now, that's one major difference between the Warspite and the Elizabeth, is the Warspite has fantastic secondary guns. The Queen Elizabeth, not so much. Decent range, 5 kilometers, not too bad, but just not as many as you would expect. The Warspite definitely does have a little bit more, well, a little bit more secondaries than we do. Shots off at the Alabama, and look at this. Instantly focused on, I think, the Hakaym, or maybe the Alabama even. I don't know. Maybe they just see a low health battleship and like, might. So, fortunately for us, we survived this. Wasn't overly extravagant game, did around 54k, but does give you a good demonstration on kind of what to expect. You really do have to be careful, especially when you are up tiered against higher tier cruisers and battleships and destroyers, especially against destroyers. That torpedo protection is quite abysmal, so you do want to be extremely self-aware of where the enemy destroyers are. Now, the Hakaym is obviously the only ship left on the team, and probably, as you've noticed, the guns turn kind of slow. They're not too bad, especially if you have the Jack Dunkirk captain on the battleship, which I do have, and I could not imagine how it is without him, because the guns turn decently slow. So the Hakaym, look at that, just took out the enemy Atago. Very good job there. But he is going to go down in a hellfire of shells. And essentially, unfortunately, we were not able to get our revenge against this Hakaym. But he is finally silenced once and for all. So overall, an okay game. Definitely could be a little bit better. So we are going to jump into port and look at her in all her glory. Alright everyone, welcome back to the port, and as you can see, World of Warships is currently celebrating its 2-year anniversary with the St. Petersburg new port. As you can see, definitely confetti laying down. It's really nice. It's kind of a nice little feature. They are also currently putting out new collections that you can get. They're kind of random. I've been getting them, but oh, not too bad. But anyway, let's actually take a look at the ship that we are here for, which is the Queen Elizabeth. Like I said, she is very, very similar to the Warspite in a lot of ways. And if you are, once again, accustomed to the Warspite, this is a good ship for you because very similar play style with Warspite. So actually, let's take a look at the stats. Survivability, 53,100 stock. Overly, not too bad. Let's actually grab my Fuso. I actually do have a couple tier 6 battleships. One of the few things I actually do have. I do have the Fuso. The Fuso, fully upgraded, has 57,100. And the Queen Elizabeth, even though stock is not that far behind, she does have a torpedo protection of 24%, while the Fuso does have a torpedo protection of about 36-37%. So definitely you do have to be well aware of those torpedoes. Her armor, let's actually take a look at the armor. Let's see, Citadel sits fairly below water. Her Citadel deck is 127 millimeters and 89 millimeters. The Citadel itself is only 51 meters, so do be well aware. The Fuso, let's actually grab the Fuso, has actually a sloped Citadel, as you can see, 76 meters on the sloped, and has a thick armor belt around 305 millimeters, so definitely a little bit more protection than the Queen Elizabeth. So you do have to be well aware. The forearmor plating is 25 millimeters, and one major thing, as you definitely could tell, she likes to be set ablaze quite often. She has quite a bit. Superstructure is very well, better yet, as you saw, has a high chance of actually getting lit up by HE, so do be well aware of that. So with that in mind, let's actually take a look at the guns. She has 4 dual 381 millimeters. The Fuso has, as you can probably guess, 12 356. So definitely has a little bit more guns, but the Queen Elizabeth has bigger caliber guns, and her bigger caliber shells actually can penetrate tier 7 bow armor. So you can use that for your benefit if you do face a tier 7 battleship that is bow end. You can actually penetrate through the bow armor and overmatch it. So definitely very, very beneficial. Now with the Jack Dunkirk Captain, the turn on the guns is 51.4 seconds. Very slow, very slow. Without it, I believe it's around 65-70 seconds, something like that. It's definitely very, very sluggish, so I'm very grateful that I do have the Jack Dunkirk Captain on this ship. Reload time is 30 seconds, very similar to other battleships of this same tier. Max dispersion is 197 meters at a range of 15.6 kilometers. Max HE damage is 6,300, which is pretty good. Once again, the British battleships are ironically very well known for their HE, while their British cruisers only fire AP. Chance of fire is 35%, and max AP damage is 11,400. The Fuso, with her guns, has 10,200, but obviously she has more shells, so that's kind of offsetting that max damage. Now, the range, once again, is 15.6 kilometers. The shell velocity is 731.5 meters per second. The Fuso, let's actually take a look at the Fuso. Her HE goes at 805 meters per second, while her AP velocity is 775. You can definitely see there's a big difference how the shells come out of the guns. And as far as I can tell, there's not that big of a difference between the HE and AP when they are fired. The AP does seem like it has a slight arcing to it, but nothing overly noticeable about it that I would definitely really prescribe in fair warning. Just takes a little bit of time to get accustomed to her shell arc. Something that you always have to experiment whenever you're taking out a new ship. Now, her secondary guns, she has 10 dual 114 millimeters. They have a 5-second reload time, and max HE damage is 1,700 with a 8% fire chance and a 4.2 kilometer range. And once again, this is probably obviously the big difference between the Queen Elizabeth and the Warspite. So the Warspite, as you can see here, has 4 dual 102 millimeter guns. They have a 3-second reload time, 1500 point damage, 6% fire chance, and a 5-kilometer range. And then she does have 8 single 152 millimeter HE shells with 2200, 12% fire chance, and a 5-kilometer range with an 8.6-second reload time. So quite noticeable as far as her secondary values. The Queen Elizabeth just does not hold up very, very well compared to the Warspite. So you do have to be aware that she's not quite the same beast as the Warspite, but still very, very similar in a lot of ways. Moving on to AA defense, the Queen Elizabeth has the best AA suite compared to any of the other tier 6 battleships there are. Obviously, definitely once you have her fully upgraded, no planes will really be able to get near you. You can definitely outcompete a New Mexico even. So moving on to the AA guns, she has 6 quintuple 12.7 millimeter guns. They have a average damage of 13 with a 1.2 kilometer range, and then she has 8 single 20 millimeter guns with a 29 average damage and a 2-kilometer range. Then she has 4 octo 40 millimeter guns with an average damage of 79 and a 2.5 kilometer range, and then the additional secondaries also definitely help out. And I really have to say, I like the look of these guns. These just look really cool. They have an average damage of 89 with a 5-kilometer range, and so even as stock, not too bad on the AA. Long range and the mid range are probably going to be your best bet as far as shooting down planes. So not too bad. Moving on to the maneuverability, the Queen Elizabeth has 22.3 knots. Definitely a lot quicker than the New Mexico at around 18 knots. The turning circle radius is 680 meters compared to the Fuso at 740 meters. Is definitely very, very nice. It is usually come down to the fact that she's kind of a short, squat ship compared to the Fuso, which is much, much longer and does require a much greater distance just to get the ship turned. The rotor shift time is kind of bad, 20.1 seconds. This will go down once you get the B hull upgraded on the Queen Elizabeth, but until then, you're gonna have to just deal with the very sluggish rudder shift time. So something you have to think about. Concealment, once again, is really nice. 12 kilometers compared to the Fuso at 15.8 kilometers. So you do have that low detectability, and it does help you out because the range on the Queen Elizabeth is not the greatest compared to the other tier 6 battleships. So having that much lower detection does allow you to pull away if needs be. Detectability range by air is 9.8 kilometers. Moving on to the modules, I have got the additional modifications to my ship. I have gone for Damage Com Mod 2. And this obviously will reduce time it requires to extinguish fires and repair floods. So it's definitely needed, especially considering how often I was set ablaze when I saw those cruisers. So very, very nice. Now, one beautiful thing is you finally get a spotting aircraft, and I have gone for premium, just so I can have it back a little bit quicker. And it does help you, especially if you are dealing with ships at a much longer range, or in fact, dealing with any ships that decide to hide in smoke. So actually very, very nice to have. The heal is not quite as good as the Fuso. It has 318 points of health per second, active for 28 seconds, while the Fuso does have 342 points of health per second, active for 28 seconds. So not as good, and once again, you don't have that legendary British battleship heal until much, much later. But you still want to try to have at least Superintendent or the premium consumables. Now, speaking of the captain, once again, we do have Jack Dunkirk And honestly, not much has changed from the Iron Duke. He's still leveling up. That's why I do have this camouflage on the Queen Elizabeth, just so I can get her captain spec'd up as quickly as possible. But anyways, this is actually going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.